The dying princess. The royal palace of Zarion stood like a shining crystal in the middle of the alien city. Its towers touched the sky, glowing under the twin suns. Inside the golden walls, silence had taken over. The laughter of servants, the music of the halls, even the sound of celebration, all had died. Only fear remained. In the tallest chamber, the alien princess lay on a bed of silver sheets. Her skin, once bright with royal colors, had grown pale. Her breathing was slow, shallow, and every exhale sounded weaker than the last. Alien healers surrounded her, their hands glowing with strange medical tools. But nothing worked. They shook, their heads in defeat. The king stood at the foot of the bed, his eyes burning with sorrow and rage. He was the ruler of 10 star systems, feared across the galaxy, but now he was only a father watching his only daughter slip away. His voice thundered in the hall. "Save her. Use everything, every medicine, every power. She cannot die." But the chief alien physician bowed his head. "My king, we have tried. Her blood is poisoned by something we do not understand. If she closes her eyes tonight, she will not open them again." The king clenched his fists, his heart breaking. The crowd of nobles and guards who filled the chamber whispered in despair. "If the princess dies, the royal line ends. The kingdom will fall into chaos." The king raised his voice so all could hear. "Whoever saves my daughter will be rewarded beyond imagination. Gold, power, land, anything. But if anyone dares to try and fails, death will be the price." The announcement spread like fire across the city. Physicians, healers, alien scientists, all came rushing, desperate for the king's promise. But one by one they failed. Each attempt ended with the princess's heartbeat growing weaker. Fear grew inside the palace. Whispers started that the princess was cursed, that no one could save her. Far away in the lower quarters of the city, a human doctor named Daniel heard the call. Humans were still considered a young species in the galaxy, weak and inexperienced compared to others. Daniel had come to Zarion as a small-town medic, helping human workers who lived among aliens. But when he heard of the dying princess, something inside him told him he had to try. He walked toward the palace gates. The alien guards laughed when they saw him. "A human? You think you can save her when our greatest healers failed?" Daniel did not answer their mockery. He simply said, "Take me to her. I will not promise miracles, but I will try with all my strength." The guards hesitated, but word quickly reached the king. In his despair, the king allowed it. "Bring the human," he ordered. "If he fails, he dies with the others." Daniel entered the royal chamber. For a moment he stood still, taking in the sight of the princess. She was young, her face delicate, her hair shining like starlight even in sickness. Her eyes were closed, her lips pale. Her life hung by a thin thread. The alien physicians sneered at him. "Do you even understand her biology? She's not human. Your knowledge is useless here." Daniel ignored them. He knelt beside the princess, carefully placing his hand on her wrist, feeling for a pulse. It was weak, barely there. He opened his medical kit, pulling out simple human tools, needles, scanners, and a small analysis pad. To the aliens, his equipment looked primitive, but Daniel trusted his own methods. As he worked, he noticed something strange in her blood sample. It was not a natural illness. It was poison. A very slow and cruel poison. His heart pounded. This was no accident. Someone wanted her dead. He looked up at the king, his voice steady. "Your Majesty, this is not sickness. This is an attack. Someone poisoned her." Gasps filled the chamber. The nobles shouted, some in anger, some in fear. The king's eyes grew sharp like blades. "Are you certain, human?" Daniel nodded. "I have seen poisons before. Not like this, but I recognize the signs. If I do not act soon, she will not survive the night." The king's massive hand tightened around the edge of the bed. He turned to Daniel. "Then act. Save her. But know this. If you fail, your life ends with Hers. Daniel swallowed hard but did not back away. I accept. He began his work, using both human science and whatever alien knowledge he could gather from the palace records. His hands moved quickly, carefully, as he tested small samples on himself, risking his own veins to understand the poison's nature. Sweat rolled down his forehead. His heart raced, but his mind stayed focused. The alien physicians watched in disbelief. This human is insane, they thought. He risks his own life for a princess who is not even his own kind. Hours passed. The princess's breathing grew weaker. At one point, her chest stilled for a terrifying second. The room filled with panic. Was she gone? Daniel pressed his ear against her chest, listening. A faint, broken heartbeat still whispered. He refused to give up. "Stay with me," he whispered under his breath. "You are not leaving tonight." As the night deepened, the king sat silently, his powerful hands shaking for the first time in his life. Around him, the entire court watched, waiting, fearing. Would this human truly succeed where the galaxy's best had failed? And then, just as the princess's pulse almost vanished, her finger twitched. A ripple of shock spread across the chamber. Daniel leaned closer, hope burning in his chest. The fight was not over. Not yet. The human's risk, the palace was drowning in silence. Every noble, every guard, every healer stood frozen as the princess's finger twitched. For a single breath, hope entered the room. But it was fragile, like a flame trembling in a storm. Daniel did not celebrate. He knew the truth. The poison inside her blood was not yet defeated. The twitch was only a sign that life was still there, not that she was safe. He looked at the king. "Your Majesty, this is not enough. She is still dying. The poison fights. Every treatment I use. If I don't find the exact antidote soon, she will fade." The king's eyes narrowed like fire burning in the dark. "What do you need, human?" Daniel hesitated. He knew the answer was dangerous, even unthinkable. "I must test the poison, inside myself." A collective gasp swept the hall. The alien physicians laughed in disbelief. Madness. Even if he survives, his body is not the same as hers. This will only kill him faster. But Daniel stood firm. "I cannot heal her if I don't understand how the poison reacts. She cannot speak, cannot tell me the pain she feels. But I can feel it. If I survive, I will know how to save her." The king studied him for a long moment. His daughter's weak breath echoed through the chamber. Finally, the king spoke. "If this is the path you choose, then so be it. But remember, if you die for nothing." Daniel nodded. He drew a small vial of the princess's poisoned blood, extracted a single drop of the dark liquid, and mixed it with his own blood sample. Within seconds, the human scanner displayed violent reactions. His heart pounded. It attacks the blood itself, tearing it apart from inside. Still, this was not enough. With steady hands, he injected a diluted trace into his own arm. The moment it entered, his body screamed. His chest tightened, vision blurred, and fire spread through his veins. The guards rushed forward, ready to restrain him, but Daniel raised his hand, forcing them back. "Don't stop me," the nobles whispered in shock. "The human is insane. He chooses pain to save her." Minutes felt like hours as Daniel's body convulsed. He recorded every reaction, the burning in his lungs, the pounding in his head, the weakness in his muscles. "So this is how she feels," he whispered through clenched teeth. Sweat dripped from his face, but he refused to collapse. Finally, he grabbed a serum from his kit, injected himself, and the pain slowly eased. His vision cleared. He let out a long breath, shaking but alive. "I know how to fight it now," he said. "Her body is different, yes, but the pattern is the same. I can make a cure." The king rose from his throne-like chair, his massive voice echoing across the chamber. "This human risked his own life to feel my daughter's suffering. No alien dared such a thing. Remember this moment." But while the king's voice thundered with respect, The alien council members were not convinced. They leaned toward each other, whispering in low tones. If a human succeeds, it will shame us all. We cannot allow this. Daniel, exhausted, barely noticed the whispers. He only focused on mixing the antidote, carefully combining human medicine with alien elements taken from the palace stores. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the lingering poison in his veins. Hours later, he held up a vial glowing, faintly blue. This might work, but it could also kill her instantly. I cannot be certain. The king stepped forward, his shadow covering Daniel. If there is even a chance, do it. My daughter's life is worth any risk. Daniel carefully injected the antidote into the princess's arm. For a moment, nothing happened. Her chest remained still, her lips pale. The entire room held its breath. Then suddenly, her body convulsed. Her eyes fluttered open in pain, and a cry escaped her lips. The alien physicians panicked. He's killing her. The guards raised their weapons toward Daniel. Blades and blasters aimed at his chest. One step closer and he would die instantly, but Daniel shouted over the chaos, "No! This is her body fighting the poison. She must endure it. If you stop me now, you doom her forever." The king's voice roared like thunder. "Stand down!" His guards froze in place. All eyes returned to the princess. Her breathing came in sharp bursts, her skin shifting between pale and glowing. She trembled violently as if caught between death and life. Daniel leaned close, whispering to her though she could not hear. "Fight. Just a little longer. I believe in you." The nobles and council members watched with wide eyes. Some whispered in awe, others in anger. For the first time, a human was not weak, not helpless, but standing in the center of alien royalty, holding the fate of their kingdom in his hands. The night stretched on. Daniel knew one truth. The princess's survival was no longer only about saving her life. Somewhere in the shadows, an enemy had poisoned her to destroy the royal line. And now, by risking himself, Daniel had become a target too. The poison was not only killing the princess, it was a message. Someone wanted the kingdom to fall, and Daniel had just stepped into the middle of a war he did not understand. Between life and death, the chamber of the princess was drowning in heavy silence, broken only by the sound of her ragged breaths. The blue glow of the antidote still pulsed through her veins, fighting against the poison like fire clashing with ice. Every noble, every guard, every servant stood frozen, their eyes locked on the fragile figure lying on the silver bed. Daniel knelt beside her, exhaustion heavy in his body. The poison he had injected into himself earlier still throbbed in his blood, leaving him weak, but his eyes burned with focus. He held her wrist again, searching for a pulse. For one terrible moment, he found nothing. The chamber erupted in panic. "She is gone," one noble cried. "The human killed her," another shouted. Weapons clashed as guards surged forward, their blasters aimed at Daniel's chest. The alien council members rose from their seats, demanding his execution at once. But then, just as the guards took their first step, the princess's chest lifted weakly, a sharp gasp escaping her lips. Her eyes flickered open for half a second before rolling shut again. Daniel raised his voice, steady and commanding, though his heart was pounding. "She is still alive. The poison is retreating. Give me more time." The king's voice thundered across the chamber. "Stand down." His command silenced the chaos instantly. The guards froze mid-step, their weapons lowering. His massive gaze turned to Daniel. "Continue, human. If she lives, you will be honored. If she dies, you will join her in the grave." Daniel didn't flinch. So be it. He worked quickly, adjusting the mixture in his antidote. His mind raced, every calculation carrying the weight of life and death. He injected a second dose, smaller, more precise. The princess's body jerked again, her veins glowing faintly beneath her skin. Her breathing came faster now, sharp and painful. Daniel leaned close, whispering words only she could hear. "You are stronger than this poison. Fight, princess. Don't give them your life." As if answering him, her fingers twitched again, this time stronger. But outside the chamber, shadows moved. In the corners of the palace halls, cloaked figures whispered among themselves. The attempt to kill the princess had not ended. If she survived, their plans would collapse. They could not allow a human to undo what had been set in motion. One figure slipped away into the night, carrying a blade laced with the same poison. Inside the chamber, Daniel's body trembled. His own heartbeat was uneven, the poison he had injected earlier still gnawing at him. One of the alien physicians sneered, "He cannot last much longer. He is breaking apart just like her." But Daniel ignored the voices. He focused only on the princess's pulse, weak but steadying. Every small improvement gave him courage. Suddenly, her body went still again. Her chest stopped rising. This time, the silence was absolute, suffocating. Daniel's eyes widened. He pressed his fingers hard against her neck, desperate for a sign. Nothing. The nobles cried out. "She is gone." The king's face turned pale, his hands shaking for the first time in his life. He began to rise from his seat, ready to deliver judgment, but Daniel refused to accept defeat. No, not yet. He grabbed his medical kit, pulling out a small device, a human defibrillator adapted for alien biology. The alien physicians laughed. Pathetic. That tool is useless on her kind. Daniel ignored them. He pressed the device against her chest and sent a shock of energy. Her body arched violently. Still nothing. A second time, another shock. Still, no response. Gasps filled the hall. The guards moved closer, certain the end had come. But Daniel's voice rang out, filled with unshakable will. "She is not leaving. Tonight." He delivered a third shock, pouring every ounce of his faith into it. And then, it happened. The princess's body jerked, her chest heaved, and a loud, desperate gasp tore from her throat. Her eyes flew open, glowing faintly with the light of her alien bloodline. The hall erupted in chaos, half the crowd gasping in awe, the other half screaming in disbelief. The king himself stumbled forward, his massive frame trembling. He fell, to his knees beside his daughter, tears shining in his fierce eyes. For the first time in decades, the galaxy's most feared ruler looked like a broken man made whole again. "She breathes," he whispered. His voice cracked as he turned to Daniel. "She lives because of you." But even in that moment of relief, danger lingered. In the shadows of the palace, the assassin drew closer, blade in hand, ready to finish what poison could not. And Daniel, though exhausted and near collapse, felt a chill in his bones. The battle was not over. Saving the princess was only the beginning. The king's judgment. The princess's sudden gasp still echoed through the vast chamber like a miracle. Nobles fell silent. Guards lowered their weapons, and even the alien physicians who mocked Daniel stood frozen. The impossible had happened. She lived. The king's heavy steps shook the floor as he rose to his full height. His eyes, wet with tears, burned with something far fiercer than gratitude. He raised his hand, and his booming voice thundered through the palace. "Summon the council. Tonight, judgment will be given." Within hours, the throne hall was filled. 1,000 nobles, counselors, and commanders gathered under the high crystal ceiling. The air was thick with whispers, half praising the human, half demanding his execution. The princess lay nearby, still weak but alive, her breathing steadier with every moment. Daniel stood guarded in the center of the hall, his clothes torn, his skin pale, his veins still burning from the poison he had taken into himself. Yet his eyes did not waver. The High Counselor, an alien with silver skin and sharp ridges along his face, stepped forward and bowed to the king. "My lord, the human broke sacred law. No outsider may touch royal blood. If you allow him to live, you dishonor our traditions." Others raised their voices in agreement. "Yes, his cure was chance, not skill. It is blasphemy. He must die." But another voice rose from the crowd, trembling but clear. The princess herself. Propped up on a golden chair, her voice was weak but steady. No, without him I would be dead. The hall went silent. Every noble turned to her. The princess's glowing eyes locked on her father. He risked his life. He suffered my pain to save me. I owe him more than life. I owe him everything. The king's fists tightened. His heart was torn. On one side, the sacred laws of his people written across centuries. On the other, the truth of his daughter's survival. His gaze fell on Daniel. Step forward, human. Daniel obeyed, standing tall despite the tremor in his legs. The king's deep voice shook the hall. You saved my daughter, but you also defied our laws. Tell us, why did you risk your own life for a princess who is not your kind? What did you seek? Wealth? Power? Glory? The chamber leaned in. Daniel's answer would decide his fate. His voice was quiet but carried across the room. I sought none of those things. I saw a life slipping away and I could not stand aside. I am a doctor. My duty is to heal, no matter the species, no matter the cost. If I had failed, I would have accepted death. But I could not accept doing nothing. The words struck like lightning. Whispers filled the hall. Some sneered, calling him naive. Others stared in awe at the courage in his voice. Before the king could respond, the hall doors burst open. A guard stumbled in, blood dripping from his chest. His voice was weak, panicked. An intruder! In the palace! They came for the princess! Gasps erupted. The king roared, "Seal the hall!" From the shadows the assassin struck. Cloaked, in black, eyes burning with hate, the figure lunged toward the princess with a poisoned blade. Daniel moved before anyone else. Despite his weakness, his instincts as a healer, and now protector, drove him forward. He threw himself between the blade and the princess. The assassin slashed, cutting deep across Daniel's arm. The hall erupted into chaos. Guards swarmed, nobles screamed, and the assassin fought with deadly precision. But the king himself rose. From his throne, his voice a storm. "Seize him alive!" The assassin was cornered, pinned beneath the king's iron grip. His mask was torn away, revealing the face of a council member, one of the very nobles who demanded Daniel's death. The hall shook with shock. The king's fury was unmatched. He lifted the traitor into the air. "You poisoned my daughter. You dared conspire in my house. Your life ends tonight." He crushed the assassin's neck with one swift strike. Silence fell again. The king turned back to Daniel, who was bleeding but still standing between the princess and danger. The king's voice trembled, not with weakness but with the weight of decision. This human not only saved my daughter's life, he defended her with his own. While my council plotted her death, he gave her his strength. Tell me, who among you is more worthy of honor, this human or the traitors who hide behind our laws? The nobles bowed their heads in shame. None dared answer. The king raised his arm high, his voice shaking the very walls. Then hear my judgment. This human shall not die. He shall be rewarded beyond measure. His name will be carved into our history as the savior of the royal line. The hall erupted, not in protest but in thunderous cries of awe. For the first time in their history, an outsider had not only touched royal blood, but had been raised above the noblest among them. The princess, her eyes filled with tears, whispered only one word. "Thank you." And Daniel, though weak and bleeding, bowed his head. The reward had not yet been spoken, but he knew his life and the galaxy itself would never be the same again. The astonishing reward. The throne hall still trembled with echoes of the king's judgment. The assassin's body lay lifeless. The council was shaken and the nobles dared not lift their eyes. In the center of it all, the human Dr. Daniel stood bleeding, exhausted, yet unbroken. He had done what no alien dared. He had saved the princess and faced death without hesitation. But the story was not finished. The king descended from his throne, his massive frame casting a shadow that swallowed the chamber. His footsteps echoed, like thunder, as he stood before Daniel. For a moment, silence gripped the hall. Every noble held their breath, waiting for the final words. The king's voice boomed. You risked your life to heal her. You risked your life again to shield her. You defied poison, death, and betrayal. For this, a simple reward of gold or power is not enough. What I give you tonight will shake the stars themselves. Gasps swept the chamber. What could be greater than riches or land? The king turned, lifting his daughter gently from her chair. She was weak, but her eyes glowed with the unyielding fire of her royal bloodline. He placed her hand into Daniel's, shocking every noble who witnessed it. This human is now under the eternal protection of the crown, the king declared. No blade, no voice, no law will rise against him. From this day forward, he is more than a healer. He is a guardian of the royal family. The council erupted in protest. Impossible! He is an outsider. A human cannot. The king's voice silenced them with a roar. Then let any who disagree step forward and challenge him. If you believe your honor is greater, take your blade and test it against his courage. The chamber went silent. Not a single noble moved. They had all seen the truth. Daniel had already proven himself greater than them all, but the king was not finished. He turned his gaze to the stars visible through the crystal ceiling. For too long we have believed humans to be weak. Tonight that illusion is shattered. Let the galaxy know. The royal line lives because of human courage. The declaration rippled across the hall like a storm. Aliens who once mocked humans now bowed their heads. Soldiers saluted with respect. Even the princess, tears shining in her eyes, whispered softly, "You gave me life when hope was gone. How can I ever repay you?" Daniel shook his head weakly. "You owe me nothing. Life itself is the reward." But the king smiled, a rare, fierce smile that shook the court. "Life is only the beginning. What I give you, human, is a place among us. You shall sit in the high council as advisor to the throne. You shall hold a title greater than noble blood, the title of savior." The nobles gasped. An outsider, given a voice equal to the galaxy's most powerful rulers? It was unthinkable, yet undeniable. The princess tightened her grip on Daniel's hand. "Then it is settled," she said, her voice trembling but sure. "From this day I walk with him by my side." Her words were simple, but in them was something more, something even the king noticed. A bond was forming, not of duty or law, but of gratitude, respect, perhaps something even deeper. The king raised his staff high, its light blazing across the chamber. "Let the stars bear witness. A human saved the crown. A human saved the future. And now, a human will shape the destiny of this empire." The hall erupted, not in protest, but in thunderous cries of loyalty. For the first time, aliens and humans shouted together. The story of one man's courage had broken barriers that had stood for centuries. And in the quiet that followed, Daniel looked at the princess, her eyes glowing softly in the light of her father's staff. She smiled, weak but alive, her fingers still curled around his. He had come as a healer. He had become a savior. And now, unknowingly, he had become the beginning of a new chapter in galactic history. For in saving her life, he had done more than earn a reward. He had changed the future of two worlds forever.